The grey Manchester sky hung heavy with October rain as Tyson Fury's Range Rover pulled up outside the old Moston Boxing Club. At 35, the Gypsy King had conquered the heavyweight division twice, earned millions, and become a global icon. But today, as he stepped out onto the familiar cracked pavement, he felt like that same gangly teenager who'd first walked through these doors 17 years ago. The building looked worse than he remembered. Paint peeled from the Victorian brickwork like old scabs, and several windows were boarded up with weathered plywood. A faded sign hung askew above the entrance, Moston, BC, Eastern 1952. This place had been his sanctuary once, where dreams were forged in sweat and determination. Tyson pushed through the heavy wooden door, its hinges groaning in protest. The familiar smell hit him immediately, leather, liniment, and that particular mustiness that came from decades of hard work and broken dreams. The gym was smaller than his memory had painted it, but the soul remained unchanged. Bloody hell, he muttered, taking in the scene. Half the lights were out, casting long shadows across the worn canvas of the single remaining ring. Punching bags hung like sleeping giants in the dim corners, some patched with duct tape, others split and leaking sand onto the concrete floor. That's when he saw him. In the far corner, hunched over a mop bucket, was a figure that made Tyson's heart skip. The man's hair had gone completely grey, his shoulders stooped with age and hardship. But even from across the room, Tyson recognized the way he moved. Economical, purposeful, like a boxer who'd never quite left the ring. "Cormac?" The older man looked up, squinting through the gloom. For a moment neither spoke. Then recognition dawned in Cormac O'Leary's weathered features, and his face broke into the same crooked smile that had encouraged 1,000 young fighters. "Well, I'll be damned," Cormac said, his Irish accent still thick after 40 years in Manchester. "Tyson bloody Fury. Look at the size of you, lad." They embraced, and Tyson was shocked by how frail his former trainer felt beneath the worn tracksuit. This was the man who'd once seemed invincible, who could stop a fight with a single look and command respect from the hardest men in Manchester. "What are you doing here, Cormac?" Tyson asked, stepping back to study his mentor's face. The years hadn't been kind. Deep lines etched around pale blue eyes, and his hands, once steady enough to wrap fighters' fists, trembled slightly as he gripped the mop handle. Cormac's smile faltered. You know, keeping busy. Someone's got to look after the old place." "Look after it?" Tyson glanced around the deteriorating gym. "Mate, this place is falling apart. Where's everyone gone?" The older man sank onto a wooden bench that had seen better decades. "Gone, mostly. The pandemic finished what time had started. We lost our main sponsors first. Local businesses going under, you know how it was. Then the kids stopped coming. Parents couldn't afford the fees, and without income, he trailed off, staring at his hands. Lost the house 18 months ago. Been staying at the council hostel on Oldham Road since then. Not much, but it's a roof." Tyson felt something cold settle in his stomach. "The hostel? Cormac, why didn't you call me?" "Call you?" Cormac laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're the heavyweight champion of the world, lad. You've got your own life, your own family. What would you want with an old trainer whose best days are long behind him?" "You're taking the piss, right?" Tyson's voice rose with emotion. "You were the one who believed in me when no one else would. When I was that fat kid getting bullied at school, you saw something nobody else did. You think I'd forget that?" Cormac's eyes glistened. "That was different times, Tyson. You were special. Anyone with half a brain could see that. Look where you ended up. I ended up here because of you." Tyson sat beside his old trainer, the bench creaking under his weight. "Remember what you used to tell me. Success isn't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. You taught me that." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the rain drumming against the broken windows. Finally, Tyson spoke again. "Tell me everything, Cormac. How did it get this bad?" The story came out slowly, painfully. The heart attack 3 years ago that had forced Cormac to step back from active training. The mounting medical bills that insurance wouldn't cover. The gradual exodus of fighters to newer, better-equipped gyms. The landlord's increasing pressure for higher rents as the area slowly gentrified. The final straw was the lockdowns, Cormac explained. 6 months with no income, but the bills kept coming. I had to choose between keeping the lights on here or keeping my flat. Thought if I could save the gym, I could save everything else later. But you lost both. Aye. The landlord's been patient considering. But he's given me until the end of the month to come up with 3 months back rent, or he's selling to developers. Heard they want to turn it into luxury flats. Tyson stood abruptly, pacing to the ring where he'd learned to slip punches and throw combinations. The canvas was stained with decades of sweat, and the occasional drop of blood from split lips and broken noses. This wasn't just a gym. It was a cathedral of working-class dreams. "How much?" he asked. "What? How much do you need? For the rent? For repairs? For everything?" Cormac shook his head. "Tyson, no. I can't take your money. You've earned everything you have." "How much, Cormac?" The older man sighed. 25,000 would clear the debt and give us a few months breathing room, but that's just the start. This place needs 50 grand in repairs minimum. New equipment, proper heating, maybe even some decent changing rooms that don't smell like a Victorian sewer." Tyson pulled out his phone, scrolling through his contacts. "Right, give me the landlord's number. What are you planning?" Something that should have been done years ago. Tyson's jaw was set in the same determined line that had carried him through battles with Deontay Wilder and Francis Ngannou. "You saved me, Cormac. Now it's my turn to save this place." As he dialed the number, Tyson was already formulating a plan. This wasn't just about money, though he had plenty of that. This was about respect, about community, about ensuring that the next generation of fighters had somewhere to learn the discipline and dedication that boxing could teach. But as the phone rang, neither man could have predicted the storm that was about to engulf them both. 3 days later, the Moston Boxing Club was unrecognizable. What had been a forgotten relic was now the center of a media circus that stretched around the block. News vans with satellite dishes lined the street, their crews jostling for the best angles, while reporters delivered breathless updates to cameras. "This is absolutely mad," Cormac muttered, peering through the gym's front window at the chaos outside. "I've never seen anything like it." Tyson grinned as he adjusted the new heavy bag he'd just installed, one of 12 pieces of professional equipment that had arrived that morning. "Get used to it, mate. This is just the beginning." The transformation had started with a single Instagram post. Tyson had shared a photo of himself and Cormac standing in the dilapidated gym, along with a heartfelt caption about loyalty, respect, and never forgetting where you came from. Within hours, it had gathered hundreds of thousands of likes and shares, but it was the follow-up video that had really set social media ablaze. Shot on Tyson's phone in the gym's dim lighting, it showed Cormac demonstrating the same footwork drills he'd taught Tyson 17 years earlier. The old trainer's movements were still sharp, his instructions clear and passionate. When he spoke about the importance of giving young people purpose and discipline, his voice carried the weight of decades of experience. "This man shaped me into who I am today," Tyson had said to the camera. He never asked for anything in return, never took credit, never complained when life knocked him down harder than any opponent ever could. Now it's time we all stepped up for people like Cormac O'Leary. The response had been overwhelming. Boxing legends like Anthony Joshua, Frank Bruno, and even Floyd Mayweather had shared the video. Ricky Hatton had driven down from his gym in Hyde within hours, arriving with a van full of equipment and a promise to help train the next generation of fighters. "The amount of support has been incredible," Cormac said, scrolling through messages on the phone Tyson had bought him. Lads from all over the country saying they want to help, former fighters, current pros, even people who've never thrown a punch in their lives. The benefit event had been Tyson's masterstroke. In just 72 hours, he'd organized what was being called the Night of Champions, an exhibition evening featuring some of Britain's greatest boxers, all donating their time to raise money for the gym's restoration. Tickets had sold out in minutes, with proceeds already exceeding $200,000. Local businesses had jumped on board too. The butcher's shop next door had offered to cater the event for free. A nearby brewery was donating beer. Even Manchester City had pledged new training equipment and promised to visit the gym for community outreach programs. "It's not just about the money," Tyson explained as he tested the new ring ropes. "It's about showing these kids that there are people who believe in them. That's what you did for me, Cormac. You made me believe I was worth something." The older trainer's eyes misted over. "You were always worth something, lad. I just helped you see it." Their moment was interrupted by a sharp knock on the gym door. Through the glass, they could see a man in an expensive suit, flanked by 2 others who looked distinctly out of place in this working-class neighborhood. "Mr. O'Leary." The man's voice was clipped, professional, with the kind of accent that belonged in boardrooms rather than boxing gyms. "I'm James Ashworth from Pinnacle Property Development. I believe you've been expecting us." Cormac's face hardened. I suppose I have." Ashworth stepped inside, his polished shoes clicking on the concrete floor. His companions, a woman with a tablet and a man with a briefcase, followed close behind. They looked around the renovated space with barely concealed disdain. "Well," Ashworth said, "this is quite the transformation, though I have to say it's rather irrelevant to our conversation today." "How's that then?" Tyson asked, his voice carrying a dangerous edge that anyone who'd faced him in the ring would recognize. Ashworth's smile was razor-thin. "Mr. Fury, isn't it? Pleasure to meet you. I'm sure you understand business. The publicity around this place has been illuminating. It's shown us just how valuable this property could be." He gestured around the gym with a dismissive wave. "This area is undergoing significant regeneration. Young professionals are moving in, property values are rising. A luxury development here could yield substantial returns." "The lease isn't up for another 6 months," Cormac interjected. "Ah yes, about that." The woman with the tablet stepped forward. "There's been a reassessment of the property's market value. Given the recent attention, we'll need to adjust the rental agreement accordingly." She handed Cormac a document. As he read it, the color drained from his face. £7,000 a month, he spluttered. "That's triple what I was paying before." "Market rate, I'm afraid," Ashworth said smoothly. "The publicity has made this a prime location. Surely you understand." Tyson snatched the document from Cormac's trembling hands. "This is extortion. This is business, Mr. Fury. If Mr. O'Leary can't meet the new terms, we'll be happy to buy out his lease. We're prepared to offer £15,000 for immediate possession." 15 grand! Tyson's voice rose. "We've just put twice that into renovations." Ashworth shrugged. "Improvements made without the landlord's permission aren't our responsibility. The offer stands until tomorrow at noon. After that, we'll be forced to pursue legal action for the back rent Mr. O'Leary owes." "But the benefit event," Cormac started. "Will be wonderful, I'm sure," Ashworth interrupted. "But charity doesn't change market economics. This property has potential far beyond this." He gestured dismissively at the boxing equipment. As the developers left, their expensive shoes clicking mockingly on the floor they'd helped transform, Cormac sank onto the bench where he'd sat 3 days earlier when his world seemed at its darkest. "They can't do this," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Tyson was already on his phone, scrolling through contacts. "Oh, yes, they can, mate, but that doesn't mean they're going to get away with it." He found the number he was looking for and hit dial. When the call connected, his voice was calm but determined. "Marcus, it's Tyson. I need a favor, a big one. How quickly can you get me the best property lawyer in Manchester?" As he spoke, protesters began gathering outside. Local residents who'd seen the news, former fighters who trained at the gym, families whose children had found purpose within these walls. The Save Moston Boxing Club hashtag was already trending on Twitter. The war for the heart and soul of the community was about to begin. The High Court in Manchester had never seen anything quite like it. Outside the imposing Victorian building, hundreds of supporters had gathered, their chants of "Save our Gym" echoing off the stone walls. Inside Courtroom 7, 2 very different worlds were about to collide. On one side sat James Ashworth and his legal team from Pinnacle Property Development. 5 lawyers in identical navy suits, armed with contracts, market analyses, and the cold logic of profit margins. On the other side, Tyson Fury looked distinctly uncomfortable in his borrowed court attire, flanked by his hastily assembled legal team and Cormac O'Leary, who fidgeted nervously with his first proper suit in years. "This is mental," Tyson whispered to his solicitor Sarah Chen as they waited for proceedings to begin. "3 weeks ago I was training for a comeback fight. Now I'm fighting landlords in court." "Different kind of ring, same principles," Sarah replied quietly. "We hit hard, we hit fast, and we don't give up." The benefit event 2 weeks earlier had been everything they'd hoped for and more. Frank Bruno's exhibition with Carl Frosch had brought the house down. Amir Khan's technical demonstration had drawn gasps from the packed crowd, but it was the moment when Cormac had stepped into the ring with Tyson, the old trainer calling out combinations while his former student shadowboxed that had reduced grown men to tears. They'd raised $340,000 in one night, enough to secure the gym's future, renovate the building, and establish a youth outreach program that could serve the community for decades. The only problem was Pinnacle Property Development's sudden change of heart. Judge Margaret Thornfield entered the courtroom, her stern gaze taking in the unusual nature of the case before her. At 58, she'd presided over countless property disputes, but none involving a heavyweight boxing champion and a social media campaign that had captured the nation's attention. "This is an interesting case," she began, settling into her chair. "Mr. Morrison, for the claimants." Pinnacle's lead barrister rose with the confidence of a man who'd never lost a property case. "Your Honor, this is quite simply a matter of contract law. Mr. O'Leary signed a lease agreement with clear terms regarding rent payments and property modifications. He has violated both provisions." He clicked to his first PowerPoint slide. "The defendant currently owes $18,000 in back rent and has made substantial modifications to the property without written permission. Under the terms of the lease, this constitutes grounds for immediate eviction." What about the new rental demand? Judge Thornfield asked. A legitimate reassessment based on current market values, Your Honor. The property's profile has increased dramatically, as evidenced by the media attention and the defendant's own social media campaign. Our clients are simply adjusting to market realities. Sarah Chen stood to respond, her voice carrying the passion that had made her Manchester's most respected housing rights lawyer. Your Honor, this isn't about market realities. This is about corporate greed masquerading as legitimate business practice. She gestured toward Cormac. Mr. O'Leary has operated this gym for 15 years, serving some of Manchester's most disadvantaged communities. During the pandemic, when government support was inadequate, he chose to keep this vital community resource open rather than protect his personal finances. The improvements to the property weren't profit-driven modifications. They were essential repairs funded entirely by charitable donations, improvements that have actually increased the property's value, which Pinnacle now seeks to exploit. Judge Thornfield leaned forward. What exactly are you alleging, Ms. Chen? Retaliatory eviction, Your Honor. The moment Mr. O'Leary's story gained public attention, the claimants tripled their rental demands. This isn't market adjustment. It's punishment for becoming a symbol of community resistance to gentrification. The legal arguments continued for hours, but the real drama began when Tyson was called to give evidence. His testimony was unlike anything the court had heard before. "This gym saved my life," he said simply. "I was an angry, confused kid heading nowhere fast. Cormac O'Leary saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. He taught me discipline, respect, and what it means to work for something bigger than yourself." He looked directly at the Pinnacle legal team. "You lot see pound signs and profit margins, but that's not what this place is about. It's about giving kids hope. It's about showing them that where you come from doesn't determine where you're going." Morrison, the Pinnacle barrister, cross-examined aggressively. "Mr. Fury, isn't it true that your celebrity endorsement has artificially inflated this property's value? Shouldn't the owners benefit from that increased value?" Tyson's response silenced the courtroom. "Mate, the only thing artificial here is your understanding of value. You think, because some cameras showed up, this place suddenly became worth more money? This gym has been priceless to this community for decades. The only difference is that now people can see it. But it was Cormac's testimony that proved most powerful. The old trainer spoke quietly about the kids he'd helped over the years, teenagers who'd found purpose in the gym instead of on street corners, young women who'd discovered confidence through boxing, families who'd found community in the most unlikely place. "I'm not asking for charity," he said, his Irish accent thickening with emotion. "I'm asking for fairness, for the chance to continue work that matters more than any property developer's profit projections." As closing arguments concluded, Judge Thornfield announced she would deliver her judgment the following morning. That night, vigils were held outside both the court and the gym, with supporters holding candles and sharing stories of how the boxing club had touched their lives. The next morning, Courtroom 7 was packed beyond capacity. Camera crews filled the gallery, while hundreds more waited outside for news. Judge Thornfield's expression gave nothing away as she began to speak. "This case raises fundamental questions about community, commerce, and the responsibilities we owe one another," she began. "While I acknowledge Pinnacle's legal right to reassess rental values, I find their timing and methodology deeply troubling." She looked directly at Ashworth. "The evidence suggests a clear pattern of retaliatory behavior designed to exploit rather than accommodate legitimate community interests." Then turning to Cormac. "However, Mr. O'Leary, a lease is a binding agreement. Back rent must be paid, and future modifications must follow proper procedures." The silence was deafening as she reached her conclusion. "I'm granting a 6-month moratorium on the eviction proceedings, during which time Mr. O'Leary can address the back rent issues. However, I'm ordering that rental increases be limited to no more than 15% annually, reflecting genuine market conditions rather than artificial inflation." The courtroom erupted. Supporters cheered while Pinnacle's lawyers huddled in heated conversation. But Judge Thornfield wasn't finished. "Furthermore, I'm recommending this case to the local authority's planning committee for designation as a community asset of special local significance, which would provide additional protections against future exploitation." As they left the courthouse, Tyson wrapped his arm around Cormac's shoulders. The old trainer was crying openly, overwhelmed by months of stress and uncertainty finally lifting. "We did it, lad," Cormac whispered. "We actually did it." "No, mate," Tyson replied, looking back at the crowd still celebrating in the street. "They did it. The community did it. We just showed them it was possible." 6 months later, The Moston Boxing Club reopened with a grand ceremony attended by boxing legends, local politicians, and hundreds of community members. The gym now operated as a community interest company, protected by both legal designation and public ownership. Cormac had moved into a small flat above the gym, where he could continue training the next generation of fighters. The youth programs were fully subscribed, with waiting lists stretching months ahead. Local schools had partnered with the gym to provide discipline and fitness training for troubled students. But the real victory wasn't measured in legal judgments or property values. It was measured in the teenagers who now had somewhere safe to train, the families who'd found community, and the proof that sometimes, just sometimes, David really could beat Goliath. Standing in the renovated gym, watching Cormac work with a group of young fighters, Tyson smiled. The old trainer's voice carried the same authority it always had, but now it was backed by the knowledge that the community would never let him fall again. Remember, Cormac called to his students, it's not about how hard you can hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. The lesson applied far beyond boxing, and everyone in that room knew it.